I was 65 years old when I signed the divorce papers in the middle of his family's Christmas party. They all laughed at me. His sister-in-law filmed it. His father-in-law cracked jokes. And my ex-husband passed around champagne like it was some kind of celebration. They thought I was pathetic, a disposable old woman who'd spend the rest of her life begging for scraps. What none of them knew was that, 3 days earlier, I'd inherited my uncle's fortune, $1.5 billion. While they toasted to my humiliation, I signed those papers with the most expensive pen I'd ever held, knowing that in just a few weeks, I'd be the one having the last laugh. What happened next destroyed each one of them in ways they never saw coming. My name's Diane. I'm 65 years old. And for 42 years, I believed I had a solid marriage. It wasn't one of those movie marriages, full of passion and romance, but it was comfortable, you know? Marcus and I met when I was 23, he was 26. It was at a cookout with mutual friends on a summer Saturday that was so hot the asphalt was melting. He was wearing a light blue shirt that matched his eyes, smiled easy, told jokes that actually made me laugh. We got married quick. 8 months later, I was already pregnant with Michael. 2 years after that came Vanessa. We built a life I thought was good enough. He worked as a regional manager for an auto parts company. I was a literature teacher. Retired 5 years ago after 3 decades teaching Shakespeare and Toni Morrison to disinterested teenagers. We lived in a 3-bedroom house in a quiet, middle-class neighborhood with a garden I tended every weekend and a porch where we'd have coffee on Sunday mornings. We had our routine, Sunday dinners, annual beach trips to South Carolina, Friday nights watching old movies on TV. Nothing fancy, but it was ours, or at least that's what I thought. The first crack showed up in September 2023, 3 months before that damn Christmas party. I was putting away his clean clothes, same old routine, separating the socks, folding the shirts, hanging the pants, when I found a restaurant receipt in his jeans pocket. It wasn't just any restaurant. It was Bella Vista, that crazy expensive Italian place downtown, the kind of spot we'd drive past and Marcus would always say, "Anyone who pays $80 for a plate of pasta is an idiot." The receipt was crumpled, stained with sauce, but you could clearly read, Tuesday, September the 12th, 7:47 p.m. 2 bruschetta appetizers, 2 entrees, osso buco and shrimp risotto, and a bottle of 2015 Barolo for $400. The total came to $680 with the tip. My stomach turned. Tuesday, September 12th. I remembered that day. Marcus had called at 7 in the evening saying he'd be working late. Cause of an urgent meeting with suppliers. Got home almost midnight, complaining about being exhausted. Went straight to the shower. I'd saved him a plate of food. He didn't even touch it. Said he'd grabbed a sandwich at the office. I just stood there in the bedroom, holding that piece of paper, feeling my heart beating out of rhythm. There had to be an explanation. Maybe it was a work dinner he forgot to mention. Maybe the suppliers had insisted on going somewhere expensive. But then I looked at the receipt again. 2 appetizers, 2 entrees, a romantic bottle of wine. There weren't 4, 5, 6 people at a business table. It was 2 people. Him and someone. I stashed the receipt in my dresser drawer, under my underwear, somewhere I knew he'd never look. Didn't have the guts to confront him. Not yet. Because confronting him would mean hearing lies, or worse, hearing the truth. And I wasn't ready for either one. After all, after 42 years together, you learn to ignore certain things, right? Or at least that's what I kept trying to convince myself as I went back to the living room and pretended everything was fine. Over the next few days, I started noticing things that had gone under the radar before. Marcus was different, more put together. He'd always been a presentable man, but lately there was this new attention to his appearance. He started wearing that expensive cologne I'd given him for his birthday in July, a $120 Dior Sauvage that sat in the box for 2 months. Suddenly, he was wearing it every day, combing his hair with gel, something he'd never done. Bought new shirts, 3 at once, without me asking. Started going to the gym too, an expensive gym downtown, not that cheap Planet Fitness near our house. I need to take care of my health, Diane, he said when I mentioned it. I'm getting old, gotta move around. Lost about 15 pounds in 5 weeks. His face got thinner, his belly disappeared. I'd compliment him. You look good, Marcus, the gym's doing you good. And he'd give this half smile, a smile that didn't reach his eyes, and quickly change the subject. His phone became an extension of his body. Before, he'd leave that old iPhone anywhere, on the kitchen table, on the arm of the couch, charging in the living room outlet. Now it was glued to his hand. When it'd ring, he'd jump out of his chair like he'd been shocked. He'd get up way too fast, go out to the backyard or lock himself in the bathroom to answer. I'd hear his voice from the other side of the door, quiet, almost whispering in a tone I didn't recognize. Tender tone. Sometimes he'd laugh, that light, genuine laugh that I hadn't seen directed at me in years. When he'd come back to the living room, I'd ask, "Who was that?" He'd answer without looking at me, "Work or Troy or nobody important." But his screen was always face down now, always with a passcode, always protected like it was guarding nuclear secrets. I'd feel this knot in my throat every time I saw that, a tightness in my chest that kept growing, until I had to take a deep breath so I wouldn't fall apart right there. But I kept pretending everything was fine. I'd cook his favorite dishes, BBQ ribs on Wednesdays, fried chicken on Fridays. I'd clean the house, change the sheets, iron his shirts, even though he'd said he was gonna send them to the dry cleaner. I'd smile when he got home, ask how his day went. He'd answer in monosyllables. Good, tiring, normal, eyes always on that damn phone screen. He didn't look at me anymore. When we were in the same room, it was like I was invisible, a piece of furniture, a shadow, something that was there but didn't deserve attention. It was early October when I found out who she was. I was at Whole Foods buying the weekly groceries, same old Tuesday routine, when I ran into Sharon in the pasta aisle. Sharon had worked with Marcus for about 5 years at the same company, then left for a better job in another city. We weren't close, but we'd always been cordial. She was thinner, with a new haircut, carrying a basket with expensive organic products. "Diane, what a surprise seeing you here." She hugged me that American way, quick and without real intimacy. We chatted about nothing much. She asked about the kids, about Michael and Vanessa. I asked about her husband, her new job. Everything was normal, light, until she let it slip right in the middle of a sentence about how terrible the traffic was. "I'm glad you're okay with everything, Diane. I know it can't be easy, but you guys seem to be handling it with real maturity. It's admirable." "Really?" I froze. Literally, froze right there, between the pasta aisle and the canned goods, holding a box of penne in my hand. The noise of the supermarket, people talking, carts squeaking, the background music, everything got muffled suddenly, like I'd just gone underwater. "Okay with what, Sharon?" My voice came out strange, kinda shaky, kinda high-pitched. She blinked. Her smile froze on her face. Her eyes went wide. You don't know." She turned red. That kind of red that rises from the neck all the way to the forehead. Started stammering. "Diane, I thought you knew. Everyone at the office. I thought you and Marcus had some kind of arrangement or something." My hand squeezed the pasta box so hard it crushed. "Sharon, Just say it. What should I know? She looked around like she was searching for an exit, ran her hand over the back of her neck, took a deep breath. Diane, Marcus, he's with someone. Brittany, the new administrative assistant who started in April. Everyone at the office knows. It's been months. They have lunch together every day, leave together after work, sometimes show up in the morning in the same car. I really thought you knew and that you guys had decided to, I don't know, separate or open the marriage or something. I felt the ground disappear from under my feet. The supermarket light suddenly got too bright, blinding. I had to grab onto the shelf to keep from falling. Brittany, administrative assistant, since April, 6 months. He'd been cheating on me for 6 months, and I, like an idiot, was at home cooking BBQ ribs. Diane, are you okay? You look pale. Do you want to sit down? Sharon grabbed my arm, worried now, realizing the bomb she'd just dropped on my life. I pulled away from her. I'm fine. My voice came out automatic, distant. I just gotta go. I left my shopping cart right there, with the fruit, the vegetables, the chicken, everything. Walked out of that grocery store without looking back, legs shaking, heart beating so fast, I thought I was gonna have a heart attack right there in the parking lot. I got in the car and just sat there, hands on the steering wheel, unable to start the engine. Brittany, I didn't even know who this woman was. I'd never heard Marcus mention her name. How many times had he come home and kissed me on the cheek after being with her? How many times had he slept next to me, his body smelling like her perfume, after sleeping with her in some cheap hotel? How many lies had he told? How many urgent meetings? How many happy hours with the team? How many gonna be home late tonight? Honey? I felt the nausea rise up my throat. I opened the car door and threw up right there, in the Whole Foods parking lot, in front of everyone. Threw up till there was nothing left in my stomach, till it was just bitter bile coming up. When I could breathe again, I wiped my mouth with an old napkin from the glove compartment, started the car, and drove home on autopilot. I don't remember the drive. I just remember arriving, parking crooked in the garage, coming in through the kitchen door, and collapsing on the cold tile floor, crying. I got home shaking. Not that shaking from being cold, but that shaking that comes from inside, that makes your teeth chatter and your hands unable to hold onto anything right. I put the key in the lock 3 times before I could get the door open. The house was empty. Marcos was still at work. Or with her. Probably with her. I went straight to the bedroom, opened the drawer where I'd stashed that first receipt, and just stood there, holding that piece of paper like it was a death sentence. Brittany, the name echoed in my head. Brittany. A woman I'd never seen, never heard of, but who apparently everyone at my husband's office knew. Everyone knew. Except me, the idiot wife who stayed home cooking and cleaning while he built a parallel life. 42 years of my life, dedicated to a man who was now drinking $400 wine with a woman young enough to be our daughter. I sat on the edge of the bed, that king-size bed we'd bought 10 years ago, where I slept every night next to him, thinking I knew the man I shared the mattress with. I started to cry. Not that pretty movie crying, no. It was that ugly, sobbing kind that comes from deep in your chest and physically hurts. The kind of crying that leaves your face puffy and red, that makes your nose run, that contorts your mouth. I cried till I had no tears left, till my head was throbbing like someone had hit me with a hammer, till I felt sick to my stomach again. I went to the bathroom, washed my face with ice-cold water, looked in the mirror. The woman looking back at me was a stranger. Red eyes, blotchy skin, wrinkles that seemed deeper than they'd been that morning. I was old, and he was with someone young. Of course he was. When Marcus got home that night around 9:30, I'd already pulled myself together, at least on the outside. I'd washed my face 3 times, put thick concealer under my eyes to hide the puffiness, dabbed some blush on my cheeks so I wouldn't look like a corpse. I was sitting in the living room watching an episode of Great British Baking Show, those cooking shows that don't require attention and just serve to fill the silence. I heard the key in the door, heard him come in. "Hi," he said, with zero emotion, without even looking my way. Went straight to the bedroom. I heard the closet door open, him taking off his work clothes, then the sound of the shower. I just sat there listening to the water running, thinking about how many times he'd showered after being with her, washing her smell off his body before coming home, washing off the guilt, if he even felt any. How many times had he gotten in that shower, soaped up that body I knew every inch of and thought about her? The anger started rising up my throat, hot and bitter, mixed with a humiliation so deep that I felt ashamed of myself, ashamed for not noticing sooner, ashamed for being so blind, so naive, so disposable. But I swallowed it, 'cause I still didn't know what to do. Swallowed it 'cause I was scared to confront him and hear confirmed what I already knew. Swallowed it 'cause after so long being a wife, a mother, a homemaker, a retired teacher, I didn't know who Diane was without all that anymore. Who was I if I wasn't Marcus's wife? If I wasn't Michael and Vanessa's mother? If I wasn't the teacher everyone respected? I'd built my entire identity around these things, and now one of them was crumbling, and I didn't have the structure to hold up the rest. Marcus came out of the shower 20 minutes later, hair still wet, wearing those gray sweatpants and a white t-shirt. He smelled like Dove soap and that expensive cologne. Sat on the couch, about 6 feet away from me, grabbed the remote control and changed the channel without asking if I was watching something. Put on a basketball game. We stayed there, the two of us, in the same room but in completely different universes. I stared at the TV screen without processing anything. He ate popcorn from a bag he'd grabbed in the kitchen, eyes glued to the game, phone buzzing every now and then on the arm of the couch. Each buzz was a stab. I knew who it was, knew he was reading her messages with that little smile I could see on the corner of his face. The next few days were silent torture. I woke up in the middle of the night on Monday, 3 a.m, heart racing, sweating cold, after a nightmare where I saw Marcus and a faceless woman having sex in our bed. Went to the bathroom, splashed water on my face, drank a glass of water, went back to the bedroom. He was sleeping soundly, snoring softly, completely at peace. I just stood there staring at him. This man I'd loved, who'd been my companion for over 4 decades, was a stranger. I didn't know him. Maybe I never had. I started digging, not on purpose at first. It was more a compulsion, a sick need to confirm what I already knew. On Tuesday, when Marcus left for work, I went into his office, turned on the desktop computer he barely used anymore. Now everything was on his company laptop and phone, but the desktop still had the old password, the one I knew, Vanessa 1001, our daughter's name, and the year she was born. I got into his email. There was a separate folder, hidden among other work folders, named Files 2023. I clicked. My stomach turned. They were emails, dozens of emails, from him and Brittany. I read some, not all, didn't have the stomach for it, but I read enough. Explicit messages, photos I didn't want to see, plans for meetups. Can't wait to see you today. That hotel you like, 7 p.m. You're incredible, baby. Never felt this before. She doesn't suspect a thing. It's so easy. That last one broke me. She doesn't suspect a thing. I was the joke. The idiot who didn't suspect while my husband built a second life. I went to the bathroom and threw up again, stayed there, hugging the toilet, crying, till there was nothing left to come out. Then I went back to the office, closed everything, cleared the history, shut down the computer, went to the kitchen. It was 10 in the morning on an ordinary Tuesday. The sun was coming through the window, birds were singing outside, the world kept spinning like nothing had happened. But my world had ended. I'd check the credit card statement when he was in the shower. I'd write down every suspicious charge in a little notebook I hid at the bottom of the kitchen drawer, under the dish towels, more restaurants, always on Tuesdays and Thursdays, the days he said he had meetings. A Marriott hotel downtown 3 times in September. A jewelry store at Lenox Mall, and $1,800 purchase on October 15th. He hadn't given me any gift on my birthday 3 months earlier in July, had said he was tight on bills, but $1,800 on a bracelet for her. That he had. Every discovery was a fresh stab. Every lie was an additional layer of pain. And the worst part, he kept acting like nothing was going on. He'd come home, eat what I cooked, and I kept cooking, 'cause I didn't know what else to do. 'Cause routine was the only thing keeping me from completely falling apart. He'd complain if the food didn't have enough salt, if the rice was soggy, if the chicken was dry. He'd watch TV, go to sleep, treated me like a maid, like something invisible that only existed to serve. Like 42 years meant absolutely nothing. It was on November 8th, a Wednesday talk, that I finally worked up the nerve to call Vanessa. My daughter, my baby, who was now 40 years old, lived in Atlanta, was a corporate lawyer at a big firm, married to Daniel, mother of 2 beautiful boys aged 8 and 5. She'd always been closer to her dad than to me, that classic thing where daughters idolize their fathers, think they can do no wrong, always take their side in any argument. But I needed to talk to someone. I was drowning in that silence, in those secrets, in that pain that didn't fit inside me anymore. I waited for Marcus to leave. He'd said he was going to play golf with some buddies, an excuse he'd never used before, 'cause Marcus hated golf, always said it was a sport for bored rich people. But now, suddenly, he was playing golf. Of course, left at 9 in the morning with a sports bag I'd never seen. Said he'd be back late afternoon. As soon as I heard the car pull out of the garage, I grabbed the phone. My hand was shaking when I dialed Vanessa's number. It rang 3 times. Hello? Her voice was rushed, professional. She was working. Vanessa, it's Mom. My voice came out choked, weaker than I wanted. Silence on the other end. Then, Mom, is everything okay? Are you crying? I need to talk to you about something. Mom, I'm in the middle of a meeting here. Can it be quick? I took a deep breath. The tears were already falling. Your father's cheating on me. Vanessa! I let it out all at once, before I lost my nerve. There's another woman? Has been for months. I found out. I don't know what to do. The silence that followed was deafening. Lasted forever. 10 seconds that felt like 10 hours. I could hear her breathing on the other end. Heard muffled voices in the background, probably her co-workers. When she finally spoke, every word was a stab. I know, Mom. The world stopped. What do you mean you know? Mom, wait, let me get out of here. I heard the sound of a door, footsteps, another door closing. She must have left the conference room. Mom, Michael told me about 2 months ago. We thought it was better not to tell you. We didn't want to hurt you. You knew. My voice shot up, shrill. Both of you knew my husband was cheating on me and didn't tell me. Mom, it's not like that. How is it not like that? Vanessa, I was yelling now. I'd never yelled at my daughter in my life. I'm your mother. I took care of you your whole lives. And you treated me like I was some idiot who couldn't handle the truth. We wanted to protect you. Protect me. I was on my feet now, pacing around the room, my free hand pressing my own stomach, 'cause I felt like I was gonna throw up again. You left me here, cooking, cleaning, sleeping next to a man who was cheating on me, while everyone, you, Michael, Sharon, everyone at his work, everyone knew except me. You made me into a clown, Vanessa. Mom, please don't. I hung up, couldn't listen anymore, threw the phone on the couch and collapsed on the floor right there, in the middle of the living room, hugging my own knees, sobbing, my own children. My kids had betrayed me too. They'd chosen their father's side. They'd decided I didn't deserve to know the truth, that I was too weak, too old, too fragile to handle it. The phone rang, Vanessa calling back. I didn't answer. It rang again. I turned it off. Hours later, when I could finally get up off the floor, I saw I had 12 missed calls from her and 8 messages. Didn't read any of them. Blocked the number. That night, when Marcus came back from his supposed golf game without any sunburn, without smelling like grass, with his hair perfectly styled, I was in the kitchen making dinner. Grilled chicken, baked potato, salad. Same food as always. He came in, tossed the bag in a corner, went straight to the shower. We ate in silence. He ate fast, complimented the food for the first time in weeks. This chicken's good. And went to watch TV. I washed the dishes, cleaned the kitchen, and realized something. I hated this man. Hated him with an intensity that scared me. And it was in that moment, with my hands in the hot dishwater, looking out the window at the dark backyard, that I decided I wasn't gonna be the victim anymore, wasn't gonna be the idiot anymore. I was gonna be something else. I didn't know what yet, but something else. I spent the next few days in a kind of autopilot I didn't even know existed. I'd wake up, make coffee, clean the house, watch TV without processing anything, make food, go to sleep. Marcus came and went like always, more and more distant, more and more absent. He wouldn't talk to me unless it was to ask for something or complain about something. I didn't talk to him either. We lived in the same house like 2 strangers sharing space. I didn't talk to Vanessa anymore. She tried calling about 5 more times over the next few days. Sent long messages that I'd delete without reading. Michael tried to reach out too. A message on November 10th. Mom, Vanessa told me, we need to talk, please. I archived it without responding. Had nothing to say to them. Not now, maybe never. It was on November 15th, a grey and cold Tuesday that I got the call that changed everything. I was in the kitchen having tea, that chamomile tea I was now drinking every afternoon, because it was the only thing that even slightly calmed the permanent knot in my stomach, when the phone rang. Unknown number. I answered, kind of without thinking, expecting spam or a sales call. Hello, am I speaking with Mrs. Diane Mitchell? The voice was male, formal, with a California accent. Yes, this is she. My name is Richard Pemberton. I'm an attorney with Pemberton and Associates in San Francisco. I'm calling about the passing of your uncle, Mr. Clarence Williams. It took me a few seconds to process. Uncle Clarence. I didn't even know he died. Nobody had told me. But it made sense. My mother's side of the family was always disorganized. Everyone scattered across the country, little contact. Uncle Clarence had lived in California since before I was born. He was my mother's older brother, an eccentric man who'd made a fortune investing in tech companies in the 80s and 90s, Apple, Microsoft, some startups nobody knew about back then that became giants. We weren't close. I'd see him maybe once a year at family gatherings when I was a kid. And after that, just at occasional funerals or weddings. But he was always kind to me, always asked how I was doing, sent handwritten Christmas cards, Called me on my birthday even when I was already an adult. I'm so sorry to hear that, I said, sitting down in the kitchen chair. When did he pass? 3 weeks ago, Mrs. Mitchell. It was peaceful, in his sleep, at 89 years old. The funeral already took place. It was small, just a few close friends as he requested. But the reason for my call is that you were mentioned in his will, and we need you to be present for the official reading. It can be any day this week at our office in San Francisco. A will. I figured it was some keepsake. Uncle Clarence had that collection of rare first edition books. Maybe he left me 1 or 2 knowing I was a literature teacher, or maybe $1,000 for each niece and nephew, dividing up what was left after the charity donations he always made. I can go on Thursday, I said, looking at the calendar on the wall. 2 days. I needed to get out of that house anyway. Needed to breathe different air. Be away from Marcos even if just for 48 hours. Perfect. I'll send the details by email. The meeting will be at 10 a.m. at our office in San Francisco's financial district. I hung up and just sat there, processing. Uncle Clarence had died and I didn't even know. Another person who left my life, and I was so absorbed in my own misery that I didn't even notice. I felt a pang of guilt. He deserved more than that. Deserved for me to have called more often, visited more. But that's how life works, right? We think we have time, think there'll be a next time, and suddenly there isn't. I didn't tell Marcus about the trip. I just packed a small suitcase Wednesday morning, left a note on the fridge, went to visit a sick friend back Friday, and got an Uber to the airport. Bought a last-minute ticket to San Francisco, crazy expensive, but I didn't care. I had money in my retirement account, didn't need to ask anyone's permission. Marcus didn't even call, didn't text asking if I'd gotten there okay. Which friend it was, nothing. Total silence. The flight was long, almost 6 hours with a connection in Dallas. I got to San Francisco late afternoon, took a cab to a modest hotel near downtown, checked in and went up to the room. It was small but clean, with a window facing the busy street. I sat on the edge of the bed and, for the first time in weeks, felt something besides pain. I felt relief. Being away from that house, away from him, away from everything, was like finally being able to breathe after being submerged underwater. I ordered Chinese food in the room, took a long hot shower, and slept through the whole night. No nightmares. No waking up in the middle of the night. Just deep, heavy sleep, the kind of sleep I hadn't had in months. Thursday morning, I got ready carefully. Put on a simple navy blue dress, comfortable low heels, pulled my hair back in a bun. Got an Uber to the address the lawyer had sent, a huge mirrored glass building in the financial district, all modern, intimidating. The Pemberton and Associates office was on the 24th floor. The reception was all white and gray, minimalist, with a young Asian woman behind a desk who greeted me with a professional smile. Mrs. Mitchell, they're waiting in the conference room. This way, please. I followed her down a hallway with light wood floors and walls covered in modern art I didn't understand. She opened a frosted glass door and motioned for me to enter. The room was huge, with a long dark wood conference table and black leather chairs. There were about 5 other people already seated, distant cousins I barely recognized. Clarence Jr., Uncle Clarence's son from a previous marriage that ended in the 70s, 2 older female cousins, daughters of another one of my mother's brothers, a guy about 50 that I had no idea who he was. They all looked at me when I walked in, waved politely, but you could feel the tension in the air, everyone wanting to know who was going to inherit what, how much each person was getting. Richard Pemberton, the lawyer, was sitting at the head of the table. He was a thin man in his 70s, with gold-rimmed glasses, perfectly combed white hair, an impeccable gray suit. He stood up when he saw me. "Mrs. Mitchell, thank you for coming. Please, have a seat." He pointed to an empty chair. I sat down, put my purse in my lap, my hands sweating cold without me understanding why. Pemberton waited another 5 minutes to make sure no one else was coming, then cleared his throat and started. "Well, thank you all for being here. We're here for the official reading of the will of Mr. Clarence Edward Williams, who passed on October 23rd, 2023. Before I begin, I need to inform you that this will was drafted in January of this year. Mr. Williams was in perfect mental and physical condition, and this document was validated by 3 independent witnesses and by the State of California notary. There are no legal grounds for contestation." He paused, looked at each of us, then opened a leather folder and pulled out a thick, multi-page document. He started reading. Uncle Clarence had left $500,000 to an Alzheimer's research institution, the disease that had killed his wife 20 years ago. He left $200,000 to a public library in Oakland where he'd volunteered. He left some personal items to the nieces and nephews. Clarence Jr. got a vintage Patek Philippe watch. The cousins got some jewelry that had belonged to his mother. Sentimental value items. Pemberton kept reading, his voice monotone but clear, and I kind of zoned out. It was clear I was going to get maybe some books from his collection, or something similar, until he paused, took off his glasses, looked directly at me. The silence in the room got heavy. "And now, the main part of the will," he said slowly, each word enunciated carefully. I quote, "To my dear niece Diane Mitchell, daughter of my late sister Margaret, who over the years always treated me with genuine kindness, who never asked me for money, never sought me out for personal gain, but who always called me on my birthdays, always sent cards on holidays, always asked how I was really doing and listened to my answers. I leave the entirety of my financial investments, properties, bank assets, and stock portfolio, totaling approximately $1,500,000,000. I couldn't process it, literally couldn't process what I just heard. I looked at the lawyer like he'd been speaking Mandarin. $1,500,000,000. The words didn't make sense together. It was like he'd said, "I leave you 3 moons of Jupiter." Did not compute. The room exploded. Clarence Jr. jumped up from his chair, slamming his hand on the table. "This is ridiculous. She barely knew my father. I'm his son." The cousins started yelling too, one of them crying, saying she was going to contest it, that this was unfair, that Uncle Clarence must have been senile when he did this. The unknown guy just sat there, mouth hanging open. Pemberton raised his hand, asking for silence. "Please, I understand everyone's shock, but I need you to calm down." His voice came out firm, authoritative. Mr. Williams was in perfect mental health when he drafted this will. He underwent a complete psychiatric evaluation last December, specifically to ensure there would be no future challenges. All the reports are here, signed by 3 different psychiatrists. Additionally, he left an explanatory letter. Pemberton picked up a separate envelope, looked at me. "Mrs. Mitchell, this letter is addressed specifically to you, but Mr. Williams asked that I read it aloud in the presence of all heirs." He opened the envelope, unfolded a sheet of yellowed paper with Uncle Clarence's shaky handwriting. He started reading. "Diane, if you're hearing this, it's because I've already gone. I hope it was peaceful. I told the doctors not to fill me with tubes when the time came. I want you to know why I'm leaving everything to you. It's not because you're my favorite niece, though you are. It's not because I feel sorry for you, because I don't. It's because over the last 40 years, you were the only person in the family who treated me like a human being and not like a walking ATM. When your mother, my sister Margaret, passed in 2005, you called me every day for 2 weeks just to see if I was okay. You didn't ask for money for the funeral, didn't ask for help with her bills. You just wanted to know if I was handling the grief. When I turned 80 and had that small stroke, you flew out here, stayed at the hospital with me for 3 days, talked to me, made me laugh, again, without asking for anything. Every Christmas, I got your card. Every birthday, your phone call. You're a good person, Diane, and good people deserve good things. Use this money to be happy. Travel. Eat at expensive restaurants. Buy that house you always wanted. Donate to causes that matter to you. But, most importantly, don't let anyone make you feel small. You're worth more than you know. With love, your old Uncle Clarence. When Pemberton finished reading, I was crying. Not from sadness, from gratitude, from shock, from a whirlwind of emotions that had no name. Uncle Clarence had seen me, had valued me, had left me not just money but validation, proof that I mattered, proof that kindness meant something. Clarence Jr. was purple with rage. I'm gonna contest this. I'm gonna sue. My father was clearly manipulated. Pemberton cut him off. Mr. Williams, as I said, everything is legally airtight. You can try to contest if you want, but you'll spend money on lawyers and get nowhere. I advise you to accept your father's decision and move on. For the next 40 minutes, it was controlled chaos. The cousins tried to convince me to do the right thing and split the inheritance with them. Clarence Jr. threatened me, saying he never wanted to see me again in his life. The unknown guy left the room without saying anything. I kept sitting there, stunned, unable to react properly. When everyone finally left, it was just me and Pemberton in the room. He sat in the chair next to me, placed a thick folder in front of me. Mrs. Mitchell, I know you must be in shock, but I need you to focus for a few minutes. I have important documents for you. He opened the folder. There were bank cards, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, a private Swiss bank I'd never heard of. There were property documents, an apartment in San Francisco, a house in Napa Valley. There were stock papers, bonds, investments. Mr. Williams spent the last 5 years organizing everything meticulously, so the transfer would be as smooth as possible for you. The money is already available in the accounts. There's no waiting period, no additional bureaucracy. It's all here. He pointed to the cards. These are yours. The codes are in these sealed envelopes. I also took the liberty of contacting 3 high-net-worth wealth managers, the best in the country, who are ready to help you manage these assets. Numbers here. I picked up one of the bank cards. It was heavy, matte black metal with my name engraved, Diane Mitchell. It felt unreal. Felt like I was going to wake up any minute and discover it was all in my head. How much exactly is available now? My voice came out hoarse. Pemberton checked a paper. The checking and investment accounts total $1.487 billion. The properties are valued at approximately $30 million. The stock portfolio, depending on the market, fluctuates between $200 and $250 million. Mr. Williams was an extremely intelligent investor. He bought Amazon stock in 1997, Google in 2004, Tesla in 2010, held on to everything. It's a considerable fortune. Considerable. He called $1.5 billion considerable, like it was an everyday thing. I left that office 2 hours later with the folder under my arm, legs shaking, head spinning. Got an Uber back to the hotel, but asked the driver to take a drive around the city first. I needed air. Needed to process. I stared out the window at the streets of San Francisco, the steep hills, the old cable cars, the colorful Victorian houses, and tried to accept that my life had just completely changed. I had $1.5 billion. Me, Diane Mitchell. The 65-year-old retired teacher who'd spent the last 3 months being cheated on, humiliated, treated like garbage. I had power now, had freedom, had the ability to do anything I wanted, go anywhere, be anyone. And the very first thing that went through my head as the Uber climbed a steep hill and the sun set over the bay was, Marcus isn't going to see a penny of this. I came back home on Saturday. Marcus didn't even ask how the trip was, how the supposed sick friend was doing, just grumbled something about dinner being late. I stashed all the inheritance documents somewhere I knew he'd never look. Inside the box of tampons in the bathroom cabinet. It's funny how men don't mess with certain things, right? On the outside, I stayed the same, cooked, cleaned, did the usual routine. But inside, I was a different person. I had power now, an ace up my sleeve, and every lie he told, every time he'd leave out for a meeting and come back 3 hours later smelling like cheap perfume, I just think, enjoy it while you can. I called Patricia Henderson on Monday. She was the most ruthless divorce lawyer in town, known for eviscerating ex-husbands in court. Made an appointment for the next day at a discreet cafe far from my neighborhood. Told her everything, the affair, the proof, the bank statements, the messages. And then I dropped the bomb, the inheritance. Patricia's eyes went wide. $1.5 billion? I nodded. And he doesn't know a thing. She smiled that way lawyers smile when they know they've got a winning case. Mrs. Mitchell, with this evidence and that inheritance protected, he's not walking away with anything but the clothes on his back. I explained my plan. I wanted Marcus to ask for the divorce, and he would. It was just a matter of time. I wanted to sign fake papers in front of his family, make it look like I was accepting the whole humiliation. Let him think he'd won. Patricia hesitated. It's going to be humiliating for you. I looked her straight in the eye. Let me worry about the humiliation. You just prepare the real papers, the ones that protect every penny of mine and prove his affair with photos, dates, everything. He's going to sign thinking he won, but the one who wins here is me. Didn't take long. Marcus asked for the divorce on a Thursday in December, in the middle of dinner, let out that rehearsed speech about not being happy for a long time, about needing to start over, about having met someone who made him feel alive again. Didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. Said he wanted to split everything 50-50 to be fair. I took a deep breath, wiped my mouth with the napkin, and made the proposal that changed everything. Fine, Marcus, I'll sign. But I want to do it at your family's Christmas party, in front of everyone. I want them to see that you were man enough to end this marriage. He looked confused, trying to figure out if it was a trap. Why? I smiled. That cold smile I'd learned how to give. Because I want your whole family to know what kind of man you are. I want it on the record. His ego loved the idea. He agreed right away. Of course he agreed. He was going to humiliate his old wife at the Christmas party while celebrating with his young girlfriend. Perfect for him. The 2 weeks leading up to the party were the strangest of my life. I bought an expensive red dress, went to the salon, got my hair and nails done, looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized myself. I wasn't the Diane who accepted crumbs anymore. I was the Diane who had $1.5 billion and a revenge plan. When Marcus saw me ready on the night of the party, I saw surprise in his eyes. It lasted 2 seconds. Then he grabbed the keys and said, "Let's go." In the car, I stayed silent, watching the Christmas lights go by. I knew this would be the last time I'd make this drive as his wife, the last time I'd be the Diane everyone knew. When we pulled up to his parents' house, I took a deep breath, not from fear, from anticipation. The house was decorated like always, lights on the giant tree, wreaths, smell of roast turkey. When I walked in, the chatter stopped. Everyone looked at me with pity mixed with morbid curiosity. My mother-in-law, Dorothy, gave me a quick, cold hug. "Glad you came, Diane. Her tone made it clear she wished I hadn't. Marcus had already gone to his brother's, probably telling his twisted version of the story. I grabbed a glass of wine, that expensive kind Dorothy always served to impress, and sat in a corner. Keisha, my sister-in-law, already had her phone in her hand, waiting for the show. And then she arrived. Brittany. Marcus had the audacity to bring his mistress to the family Christmas party. She walked in wearing a green dress that was too tight, heels that were too high, perfectly straightened hair, confident smile of someone who thinks she's already won. She wasn't even 35. The silence was awkward. Even the kids stopped running. Marcus introduced her without shame. Everyone, this is Brittany. Dorothy's eyes went wide, but she quickly forced out a, "Welcome, dear." During dinner, Brittany laughed loudly, touched his arm, made comments about how welcoming the family was. I was a ghost at that table, invisible. After dessert, Marcus stood up with a champagne glass. "Everyone, as you all know, Diane and I are getting divorced. Sometimes you need to have the courage to start over, to look for happiness." He looked at Brittany with that syrupy gaze. "And I found my happiness." Some people clapped. Dorothy wiped away a fake tear. It was disgusting. Marcus pulled the divorce papers from a bag. "Diane said she wanted to sign today, in front of everyone. Let's end this with dignity." He put them on the table. Everyone moved closer, Keisha already recording on her phone. I stood up slowly, grabbed my purse and pulled out a pen. A solid gold Mont Blanc worth $5,000 that I'd bought specially for this moment. Marcus looked at the pen with barely disguised envy. I opened the envelope, read through the vague papers he'd prepared, dividing everything 50-50 without specifying anything. No mention of the inheritance, 'cause he didn't know it existed. The next morning, Patricia sent the real papers to Marcus's email. I was having coffee when he came back to grab clothes, whistling, glowing. "I'm gonna stay at Brittany's apartment for now. Once the divorce goes through, we'll split the house." I took a sip of coffee, calm as could be. "Marcus, did you check your email today?" He frowned. "Why?" "Because my lawyer sent the official papers, the real papers." I watched the color drain from his face. He grabbed his phone, opened the email, started reading. With every line, his expression changed. Confusion, disbelief, panic, pure rage. "What the hell is this? It says you're entitled to 90% of the assets, that you have proof of the affair, and that you inherited $1.5 billion. I smiled, that cold smile he hated. "That's right. My Uncle Clarence died in November, left me everything. And before you think about contesting it, that inheritance came after our actual separation. It's in an irrevocable trust, and you're not gonna see a penny." Marcus stood frozen. "You lied. You knew about the inheritance and didn't tell me." I stood up, put my cup in the sink. "I lied. You spent months sleeping with a woman young enough to be our daughter, spending our money on hotels and gifts for her. And you have the nerve to accuse me." My voice came out sharp as glass. "Yesterday you humiliated me in front of your entire family, made me sign ridiculous papers while your mistress clapped and your sister filmed. You thought I was stupid, old and washed up. Well, Marcus, those papers are worthless. The real ones are these. And you will sign. Because if you don't, I'll sue you for adultery with all the proof I have. Photos, messages, statements, and I guarantee you'll walk away with nothing." He tried to argue, yelled, threatened. I showed him the photos of him and Brittany going into hotels, the statements, the messages recovered from the computer. Every piece of proof was a stab to his ego. In the end, he collapsed in the chair, head in his hands. "I'm going to be left with nothing." I crossed my arms. You're gonna sign by the end of the week, or I'll make your life a legal hell you won't forget. Marcus signed 3 days later. No lawyer, no contest. Left the house with 2 suitcases and the old car. Brittany dumped him 2 weeks later. A manager with no money wasn't so attractive. I found out through Sharon, who called to gossip and apologize. I accepted the apology, but cut contact. Vanessa and Michael tried to get close after the inheritance. Vanessa crying, saying it was a mistake. I said, "You guys treated me like an idiot, chose to protect your father's ego. That doesn't get fixed with apologies." I didn't cut contact completely, they're still my kids, but it was never the same. 6 months later, I sold the house, bought an apartment in Miami, oceanfront, with a huge balcony where I have coffee watching the sunrise, donated $1 million to the school where I worked. They created a scholarship in my name, invested in women-led businesses, traveled to places I'd always wanted to see, learned Italian, started painting classes, adopted a dog named Duke who sleeps in my bed. Marcus's family never saw them again. Keisha deleted the party video when she found out about the inheritance, probably dying of embarrassment. Dorothy called trying to apologize. I hung up on her. Robert showed up at my apartment asking me to help Marcus out financially. I closed the door without a word. Today, at 66, I see how I spent 42 years being small, making myself smaller, accepting crumbs. The betrayal was the worst and the best thing that happened to me. It woke me up. That night at the party, when I signed those papers under their laughter, was the last time I let anyone make me feel small. Because I knew I had the power, that my life was gonna start over in a way they'd never imagine. People ask me if I forgive Marcus. No, and I don't need to forgive to move forward. He made choices. I made choices. Mine were better. He's in a rental apartment, working at the same mediocre job. I'm in Miami, drinking champagne on the balcony, planning my trip to Greece, living the life I always deserved. And if there's one thing I learned, never underestimate a woman you think is done, because she might just be getting started. Are you sure about this, Marcus? Once I sign, there's no going back. He smiled, arrogant. Absolutely sure, just sign already. So I signed, calm as could be. And Brittany started clapping, Keisha filming everything, Troy passing around champagne, Robert cracking jokes. A woman your age is better off alone anyway, Diane. Enjoy retirement. They laughed at me. Dorothy let out a poor thing in false pity. I put my $5,000 pen back in my purse, looked at each one of them, memorizing their faces, the mocking smiles, the malicious satisfaction, and said only, "Thanks for dinner, Dorothy. It was unforgettable." I walked out of that house with my head held high, knowing that in just a few weeks, every one of those laughs was going to turn to ash in their mouths. So, that was my story. The story of how I, at 65 years old, was humiliated in front of an entire family while signing divorce papers, without them knowing that 3 days earlier I'd inherited $1.5 billion. I want to know, what do you guys think? Did I go overboard with the revenge, or did I do the right thing? Leave it here in the comments, please. I love hearing your opinions, and if you related to any part of my story, go ahead and hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel too so you don't miss the next ones. There's an incredible story showing up on your screen right now that you need to hear. Thanks for listening to me. Big kiss and see you next time.